Bringing hundreds of miles of communities along the Nile River under one ruler was a massive logistical achievement, but keeping them unified required a completely different kind of tool, a political invention. Between 2686 and 2181 BCE, the Old Kingdom emerged. This period forged the architecture, culture, and administration that we immediately recognize today as ancient Egyptian. The ideological solution they developed was absolute. The pharaoh reigned as a living god, specifically the earthly incarnation of Horus, the sky god. With this divine status came a very specific responsibility. The pharaoh's core duty was to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic balance of order, truth, and justice throughout the universe. But a system like this carries a massive risk. If you stand before your people and claim to be a deity who controls the natural world, you have to back it up. You need to provide indisputable physical proof of your power. That strict necessity to project unquestionable authority birthed the most ambitious centralized construction machine in human history. The shift toward monumental building began in the Third Dynasty with Pharaoh Djoser and his brilliant chief architect, Imhotep. Before Imhotep, kings were buried in flat mud brick mastabas. He stacked 6 of them in decreasing size. By using limestone instead of mud brick, he achieved an engineering leap, creating the world's first large stone structure. The physical result is the step pyramid at Saqqara. This massive tomb acted as a literal stairway to heaven for the king. It also functioned as a permanent billboard, signaling to everyone that the state now possessed the capacity to organize immense resources and manpower. Fast forward to the Fourth Dynasty, under Pharaoh Khufu, and this architectural ambition reached geometric perfection on the Giza Plateau. The Great Pyramid required roughly 2.3 million stone blocks, some weighing over 15 tons, stacked almost perfectly in alignment with the 4 points of the compass. And contrary to a persistent modern myth, this was not built by slave labor. The true engine of this construction was the Akhet, the Nile's annual flood season. During the months when the floodwaters covered the agricultural lands, farmers couldn't work their fields, so they were conscripted into highly organized labor gangs to float heavy stones down the swollen river on barges. Tracking the logistics of moving millions of tons of stone required a highly structured hierarchy. The pharaoh appointed a vizier to oversee the treasury, and regional governors enforced the labor tax across their respective districts. At the ground level, this operation was managed by a highly respected class of scribes. Because Egypt didn't use coined money, these administrators meticulously recorded everything, paying skilled laborers in massive daily rations of bread and beer. When you look at the Great Pyramids, you're really looking at a massive socioeconomic engine. Building them forced a disparate, river-based population to cooperate, centralizing the wealth, labor, and power of Egypt into a single, unified system. But that system eventually proved too successful for its own good. The compounding costs of building and maintaining these sprawling pyramid complexes slowly drained the royal treasury. You can see the physical evidence of this economic decline over time. Compared to Khufu's towering monument, the later pyramid of Menkaure is smaller and much less resource-intensive. As the treasury shrank, political fractures appeared. Regional governors, known as nomarchs, began making their positions hereditary. They accumulated local wealth and slowly siphoned authority away from the capital city of Memphis. Then came a fatal environmental blow. A severe shift in the region's climate brought on a period of intense, prolonged droughts. Without regular rainfall upstream, the Nile failed to flood. Without the flood, the crops died, and widespread famine set in across the kingdom. This environmental disaster created a devastating ideological crisis. Because the pharaoh was a living god responsible for maintaining cosmic balance, the failing crops proved to the starving population that his divine power had vanished. Following the remarkably long reign of Pharaoh Pepi II, the fractured and starved central government completely shattered, plunging Egypt into a dark period of chaos known as the First Intermediate Period. The centralized state ultimately collapsed under the weight of its own immense ambition. But the Old Kingdom's foundational ideas, its intricate bureaucracy, its religious art, and the very concept of a unified Egypt were forged so perfectly in stone that they survived the chaos, waiting to be reborn.